It's time for This Week in WordPress, episode number 163, entitled Get Robert on Speeddial. It was recorded on Monday, the 17th of May 2021. As always this week, I'm joined by Paul Lacey, my co-host, but I'm also joined, unusually, by 3 additional guests, making for 5 on the panel today, which is fun. We were joined today by Joe Casabona. We were also joined by Ronald Gijsel and by Topher DeRosia as well. So we talk about the WordPress news this week. We decided to keep it down to a relatively small number of articles. The first one was all about how GiveWP has been acquired by Liquid Web, and luckily Joe had the scoop on that this week. We also talked about how Robert Jacobi has been hired by Cloudways to represent all of their WordPress initiatives. We also talked very briefly about how the Page Builder Summit went during the last week, and then we move on to GeneratePress 2.0 and the fact that you can now build aspects of your theme with GeneratePress and blocks. And then finally, we round up with talk about how accessibility has been put into Gravity Forms 2.5. It's all coming up next on This Week in WordPress. This Week in WordPress was brought to you by Termageddon. When you build contact forms for client websites, you may be forcing that client to comply with multiple privacy laws. Rather than avoiding discussing the importance of privacy policies with your clients, try out Termageddon, the auto-updating privacy policy generator. The best part is that Termageddon gives web agencies a free set of their policies forever, in the hope that you like their product and use their reseller or referral programs to help your clients get protected too. Your client gets protected, you make more recurring revenue. Go to termageddon.com and click the Agency Partners page to receive your free license today. And by A/B Split Test. Do you want to set up your A/B split tests in record time? The new A/B Split Test plugin for WordPress will have you up and running in a couple of minutes. Use your existing pages and test anything against anything else. Buttons, images, headers, rows, anything. And the best part is that it works with Elementor, Beaver Builder and the WordPress block editor. Go check it out and get a free demo at absplittest.com. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good day, depending on wherever you may be. WP Builds Weekly WordPress News, episode 163, I believe it is now, 163. As always, joined by some fabulous WordPress people, and we're going to have a little bit of a discussion. We've got a very lightweight set of things to talk about today. That means that there's less to talk about, so we'll have more time to talk about each one, which will be really nice. As always, joined by, for the first time, I'm going to point the wrong way. No, I've got it right. Joined by my co-host, Paul Lacey, and in a moment, I will get him to join Ronald, Joe, and Topher properly. But just before we do all that, if you would like to make any comments about this, you can either join us in our Facebook group, which is wpbuilds.com/Facebook, or you can go to wpbuilds.com/live, and you need to be logged into Google if you'd like to make some comments there. If you happen to be in Facebook, then please click on the StreamYard link. You'll have to actually search through the thread of this post, and right at the bottom, it'll say something like StreamYard.com/ I don't know what it says, but it says something. And if you click on that, it enables us to see your picture and get your name. Otherwise, it just says anonymous Facebook user or something like that. But that's if you would like to comment. Right, Paul, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce our fine guests today.
Oh, thanks, Nathan. And how are you today, Nathan? Because you've been recovering from the Page Builder Summit. Are you have you had some sleep and a couple of beers and
yes,
some rest now?
Both of those things, all 3 of those things. We'll talk more about that, I think, later. But yeah, I feel rejuvenated and less tired than I did 72 hours ago. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, okay. Well, I'll introduce everybody who we've got here today. Like Nathan says, we've got 5 of us today, and we do have a guest who we haven't had on before, and he is Topher DeRosia. Did I say that right? DeRosia.
A little more ZH in the end. DeRosia.
DeRosia.
Yep.
Well then, for next time, Topher is the lead WordPress strategist at Canva Creative and community ambassador for Big Commerce. I didn't know that, actually. You've been a web developer for over 25 years and a WordPress developer for over 10. And you're from Grand Rapids, where you live with your wife, Kate, and daughters Emma and Sophia. You haven't mentioned in your profile here that you actually also run HeroPress. That's right, yeah?
I do.
HeroPress.com, is it?
HeroPress.
Or is it .org?
Yep.
Is it
It's
.com?
Yep.
.com, HeroPress.com. We'll talk little bit about that later as well. And you were just telling us earlier that you have bought, like you're selling your house, or are you moving out of your house?
No.
And
We're gonna
you're not
keep
selling
the
it.
house.
Yeah.
No, we recently bought an RV.
Cool.
And our plan is for my wife and I to live in it, but our children are going to stay at the house, and they're adults now.
It's one way to escape. Yeah.
They have day jobs.
Yeah. They've got
Yeah.
jobs and stuff. Yeah. No, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to, because you did say that you're going to try and visit all the WordPress people that you know. So me and Nathan now, and Ronald over here in the UK. So,
Go
we're
really,
waiting.
really fast when we hit the East Coast.
Yep. Brilliant. 88 miles an hour. That's what you'll need to hit.
Yeah.
Also, we have returning guest and good friend of mine, Ronald Gijsel. And Ronald, you're the partnership manager at Yith, and that's the company behind lots of WooCommerce plugins. And you also, more recently, co-host a weekly London WooCommerce meetup and the host of the Woo Roundtable discussion as part of the Builder community events. And is that something you do with Bob WP? Is that right?
That's right, yeah. It's with Bob.
Yeah.
And by the way, the London one is almost 1 year in the making. So we soon to hit our 50th episode. So take away 2 weeks of a Christmas break. We're catching up with episode 163. So
I lied. We're on episode 382. I think.
oh,
it is,
okay. Well, I'll
actually.
give up then.
Yeah.
The reality is we're something like 161 because if we do actually skip an episode, the system forces us to have the number anyway. So
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
yeah. But let's just, no one needs to know about that. We'll just keep that between us anyway. And last but not least, we have Joe Casabona, and Joe is a podcaster, educator, and I don't know what's wrong with me today. WordPress developer with over 20 years experience in the space. And these days he helps creators create more easily. And he's also the host of the How I Built It podcast. And Joe's got his new picture on the wall. Last time you were on the show, you were getting your new picture and I was getting my new picture, and I've got it. And you've got your new picture. I mean, that's the first news item, I think.
That shows that time has progressed and that people should watch these episodes in order, so that they need to figure out which of these pictures is the new one.
Yep. I've also got a new kind of plaque thing on the wall that you can see. It says "Never give up," but it's kind of blurred out with the camera today. But my picture's way bigger than it looks. Like, it's absolutely huge, but the camera seems to have kind of made it just look slightly bigger than my head.
It's like that joke on Father Ted. No Dougal. This cow is really small. That cow is far away.
I'm going to really offend you now, Nathan, that I never really watched Father Ted. And I know that's really bad if you're from the UK to not watch Father Ted, but I've never watched it. But
anyway, I'm sorry.
I'll catch up at some point. Yeah, I'll catch up at some point. But anyway, so we should probably get on to the news items as well. And like Nathan said, we've not got too many today, but we've got some really good talking pieces. So the first one up, Nathan, if you want to do the honors with sharing the screen, if you could at all.
I surely can. Let me just make sure I've got the right screen up, which is this one. Oh, look at this lovely,
we're starting off
website.
With give a news item around GiveWP. And GiveWP, the donation plugin, has been acquired by the big hosting company LiquidWeb. And we're really thankful today because we've got Joe Casabona on, who was the person who actually officially broke the news first, as far as I understand. And I've listened to your podcast as well. So this is on the screen at the moment on How I Built It. How I Built.it is the podcast episode that Joe recorded with Matt and Devin, who are the co-founders of GiveWP, where they talk about the acquisition itself and how it came about and the future and that kind of thing. I've listened to it. I don't know if any of you guys have listened to it, but Joe, I don't know if you want to kind of summarize, what you found out in that conversation and anything else that you might know that you're at liberty to tell us about any kind of off-air conversations that you had, because it was just kind of like it was like the initial announcement podcast, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we got to record this interview a couple of days before the announcement. And so as soon as the press, I was kind of watching both the GiveWP site and the Liquid Web press releases page, and as soon as one of those published, I hit publish on the episode. I had it all up and ready, and I just hit publish everywhere that needed to be. And so I was honored and flattered that the GiveWP guys came to me. I think they also went to Matt Medeiros for the WP Minute, and he released an interview there too. So he asked a couple of different questions than me, so I think you get a good full picture. Not that we coordinated or anything. And I think the main thing that Matt and Devin wanted to communicate here was that nothing is really changing for customers. Nothing is changing organizationally. So they had a couple of really important, a couple of important things that they needed to make sure stayed in place even with the acquisition. And so we talked about how it came about, how Chris Lemma approached Devin and Matt in December and to figure out kind of how they could work together. We talked about the acquisition process, which is always interesting to me because you need to do your due diligence. I always joke that if anybody wanted to acquire any of my properties, it would be just a total nightmare because I don't have separate bookkeeping for any of them. It just all flows through, and you're supposed to, or you're going to have to kind of figure that out later. So, and we just had a pretty candid conversation about, what it's going to be like moving forward and the ability to get them more resources to do more of the things that they're going to do, the ability to hire more. And, I think they're having, as we record this, they're having a town hall tomorrow, May 18th, at I want to say 11 Eastern, but I'm not 100% on that, where they'll be answering more questions with Joe Osterling of Liquid Web. And so, it's just, I think that they answered a couple of questions I was really interested in. We didn't talk, I didn't ask numbers or anything like that because that's generally not something that people make public, but how it came about and kind of some of the what would be like a no deal situation. We talked about some of those things, and I'm really excited in general for both Liquid Web and GiveWP. I'm a big fan of both of those companies, and seeing them come together, I think is going to be really good. And I'll just say that Liquid Web's track record here is very good, right? Because they acquired iThemes, and iThemes has basically been a separate entity. They acquired the events calendar recently. I talked with them on my podcast about that, and they've acquired a few other things that are still operating as those separate things. So again, I'm really excited for everyone involved.
Joe, may I ask a quick question? Do you know, did they take everybody along for the ride, all of the previous employees apart from Matt and Devin? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that I think was one of the deal breakers, if they couldn't. So everybody at GiveWP is still an employee under the Liquid Web brand. And they're, as far as I know, as far as Matt and Devin have said, they're going to still basically operate as an autonomous entity. But they'll be able to get more financial support from Liquid Web, more team members and more cross-pollination stuff. That's one of the things we talked about, right? Because you can imagine if you're having like a fundraising event, maybe you can marry the events calendar and GiveWP in a better way because they fall under the same family and they have more access to each other that way.
I feel like GiveWP have got a social reach, really impressive social reach. Maybe that's largely because of Michelle Frechette, who I know, and I follow her on Twitter, so maybe that's the pipeline through which it comes at me. But it feels like they're constantly doing things socially and constantly making waves and noise. So it seems like a great match for Yeah, for Liquid
Yeah,
Web.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think they do a really, really good job. I think if you're in the WordPress space and you want like a masterclass on how to engage and build a community, GiveWP is it. And I interviewed Michelle. Well, it's not out yet, but I have an upcoming episode with Michelle on exactly that because I've been trying to do more of that on my side. So yeah, if you want to see how they do things, because like Michelle and Taylor as well, I think they just do a great job of reaching more people, putting out valuable content, and building that community.
Mm.
I think you're
I
right.
agree.
I mean, the
Um,
go
the-
Topher. Yeah.
Taylor and Michelle do a wonderful, wonderful job, but Give was doing a good job before they came on as well. It's so I don't want to detract from what Michelle and Taylor are doing, but I think it shows the wisdom of GiveWP and to get those two to do that job because they're good at it. Because they were doing a good job before as well. So it's been a long-standing thing. They're not just recently figured it out and doing great. They've been doing a great job for a long time.
It's one of those companies where you feel you can see past the brand to the people. I think that's why it's super important that they do maintain the team in there. And I know that when there is acquisitions like this, you'll always see, on social media, let's say on Facebook or something, you don't have this facility on Twitter, but on Facebook, you'll have sad faces, crying faces, angry faces. Then you'll have like happy faces and hearts and all that sort of stuff. But there's always kind of a few people who are not too happy about this sort of thing. And I mean, personally, my take on, any sort of commercial thing, whether it's someone doing a job or a company, is that at some point it comes to a situation where it needs to evolve or move on or close or something like that. And especially when you have a couple of founders, who've worked hard for a long, long time, what are they supposed to do? Work exactly the same forever? Are they supposed to just keep doing it so that the community, for the couple of seconds when they take notice, don't get upset about it? So I'm very happy for the founders, first of all, because this is a seriously cool achievement. I don't like you say, we don't know the numbers, but you would imagine that it's significant. I think you said on the podcast, Joe, they've got like 23, 24 members of staff. So there's a lot of people to pay there. The company probably already is pretty profitable, I would imagine. And they've been steering it really, really well. Like we said, the social media goes really, really well. But Joe, did you get a chance to talk to anyone from Liquid Web itself? Like, well, I'm just wondering, like there's a lot of acquisitions. Like, what? I mean, I think I know the answer, but, and this is to anyone actually on the panel, why is there so much acquisitions right now? What's going on? What are these companies trying to achieve? What are they trying to do?
Yeah, so I haven't gotten to talk to somebody from Liquid Web. I'll say yet. Not that I'm trying particularly hard, but I have a lot of people there. So it is mostly speculation on my part. But I think this kind of great consolidation we're seeing started to happen a few years ago, right? We saw agencies acquire other agencies, and you see, we're seeing a transition from, I'm a developer, I can make a plugin and start a business because WordPress, the ecosystem is small enough and word of mouth is fine, and I don't really need to know how to run a business proper to turn a profit. Not to take away from anybody who's done that, obviously, because like Gravity Forms and Sandhills Development are obviously running very good businesses, but it was very much I can scratch an itch and start a business. And now the WordPress ecosystem is maturing. It's a billions and billions of dollar industry, WordPress in particular. And so you see, I think you see hosting companies in particular trying to not replicate a Squarespace model, but create a similar experience where they have a unified suite of WordPress tools to make it as easy as humanly possible to set up a WordPress site. Because you do see the competition saying like, hey, why do you need to figure out hosting? Like, why do you need to figure out how to install and configure these things, right? And with Liquid Web, now with like Nexus and managed WordPress, you can say, hey, we have the tools to create a really nice membership site, maybe a donor site, integrated. You see GoDaddy Pro going hard on e-commerce, right? They acquired Skyverge and all of their plugins, so they can say, hey, if you need WooCommerce, like, we are where it's at. And then you have WP Engine focusing on maybe the more design aspect of it, right? Because they picked up Flywheel, which was a hosting company for designers. They bought StudioPress, and saying acquired Rich Tabor is a weird way to put it, but they hired, right, Rich and all of his tools. So I think you see hosting companies in the WordPress space niching down and making acquisitions that make sense within their niche.
Do you know, that's really curious, I think, because it would be fascinating if excuse me, if we could wind the clock forwards a couple of years. If, something like Liquid Web really has pivoted and they've gone off in the kind of more donate website, the sort of non-profit charitable, because of the acquisition that they've just had. And you're right, it didn't really occur to me until just now. I just saw them all trying to get whatever was working and what was popular and what have you. But yeah, that kind of makes sense. If you're going to do WooCommerce, go here. If you want to be into what was Genesis, go here. If you want to do donation stuff, then go here. That's really interesting. That is maturing. Wow. Sorry, Ronald, I fear I interrupted you.
I think it was me.
I apologize. Sorry.
When I was at WordCamp London 2 years ago, I was approached for the first time by a company to say, to let me know they're looking to acquire interesting things. And they weren't looking to buy anything from me. I don't have anything interesting, but to leverage, people I know in the community to spread the word, not real publicly, but it wasn't a secret, to say, hey, maybe you should look at this company over here. They're doing something really interesting, or whatever, and to let people know that they're looking. And since then, so that was 2 years ago. Since then, probably 3 or 4 different companies have approached me to let me know the same thing. Hey, we're looking to buy interesting things, to build a portfolio of stuff. And I think Nathan, to your point, you can only do the same thing for so long before you run out of innovation. I mean, how much more can you do to make websites faster or cheaper or whatever, So places like Liquid Web are thinking, what else can we do? And they doubled down on WooCommerce. They're doubling down on membership sites and donation sites. And if they can make themselves much more interesting by offering these tools than just web hosting. I mean, we saw it when WordPress hosting came out. It used to be if you got signed up for a web host, you got an empty public HTML folder, and then WordPress managed hosting became a thing. And that was huge. But now kind of everybody's doing it. And
it makes financially a lot of sense as well, because you have hosting for $3.50, just random number. But if you add a solution to that, you suddenly add £10, $10. But not only then, because if you don't have that particular solution as part of the hosting and you do it separately, it will cost you probably double that, £20 or $20. So now you have a customer that actually will stay with you, that gets good value. Your retention rate is much higher, and your cost of acquisition of having that customer originally only for $3.50. You get a much higher profit out of it. So it makes a lot of sense for hosting companies to pursue this way of acquiring more business and complement the hosting side of what they offer. My only concern is, and this is totally personal and open, but I think I must say what Joe said with Liquid Web, keeping all the businesses totally independent and they still do their own thing at what they're good at. Is that let's say in a couple of years' time, it's a bit what Nathan said, in 5 years' time, you have hosting companies having, managing plugins and different solutions. And you get sort of these segmented or pillars that you go for this. And once you're there, you can't then move to something else. And WordPress obviously is an open source. So you should be able to take whatever you have built on here and move it to somewhere else. So having barriers whether these are financial or even solution based, it might not be the right thing going forward. But at the moment, the signals from hosting companies is that everything is open and transparent. So far it's looking good, but I can imagine there could be an issue in the future if we go down this way where everybody is acquiring a certain set monopoly, and then you better not land on that station or you're done. But
you know what I think is interesting, and it's probably different from Topher and I here in the U.S. And Nathan, Paul, and Ronald are all in the UK. Ronald, you're in the UK, yeah? Yeah,
I am, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this, and then the WP drama that happened about 6 weeks ago, with Wix brought up a couple of interesting things around the GPL. Right, because the GPL here in the United States has never been litigated, so we don't really know how strong that is. I think if we see I'm like a legal nerd. I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but I listen to legal podcasts. And I think that if something like that happens, at least here in the US, I will be extremely interested to see how the GPL is litigated moving forward. Right, we saw the Google Oracle Supreme Court decision a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago now, and I'm kind of just blue skying here. That would be, I think it would be bad in general for the industry, for hosting companies to kind of monopolize like the data and make it less portable. And that's really not what WordPress is about. But I would be interested to see who, if anyone, would challenge the GPL or try to enforce the GPL via the courts, which is how laws are made. You know, how laws are made are broken.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has at all anywhere, and it's sort of almost praying that nobody does, because then it never needs to be actually tested to see how watertight it is. I think it's fascinating, wasn't it? Didn't iThemes, you were mentioning earlier that iThemes had been bought as well by Liquid Web. They autonomously then bought, was it Cadence, Paul?
Yeah,
recently.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes iThemes buys the company, and then sometimes.
So they're so autonomous they can even go out and acquire other. I mean, that is autonomy, isn't it? That's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's nice. Joe, forgive me, I forgot to put your little website up. So there it is. HowIBuilt.it/GiveWP is the podcast.
I have a quick question about that domain.
Yeah.
How hard is it to buy an Italian domain?
Let me tell you. I'd love to tell you that I got my Italian citizenship because I qualify for that because my grandfather came over. But it wasn't
dedication.
That. I know. I want to. It's something I aspire to do, but he passed about 10 years ago, and so it's harder now because I need to like prove a lot more things. Yeah. The short and actual answer is GoDaddy has like a domain broker service. So you pay the whatever 12 or 15 bucks for the domain plus an extra 20 for them to register it under their subsidiary. So the domain cost me 40 bucks a year, but totally worth it because I love it. And they made it super easy. It like my OCD is a little like all my domains are over here except for this one, but I'll survive.
You just said love it. Can you imagine who's got that domain? Love it.
Oh man.
Yeah. That's the sort of URL I'm not going to blindly pull up in my browser.
Oh yes, good point. Not going to do it. We should also, Paul, if it's all right, I'm just going to put that one up as well, just to say that there's a version of this story from GiveWP, and probably just pop it on the screen. There we go. There it is. You can find.
So one thing, all these like sometimes you get films, computer games, or books that are kind of like alternative reality. Like, what if these people won the war? What if this? Well, what if Automatic got acquired by a gigantic hosting company? Is that possible? Can Automatic get acquired? And what would that mean to the WordPress project?
My money's on Google acquiring Automatic. I'm like, I've been saying that.
I don't think it would be a hosting company.
No, I mean
they basically are a hosting company, right?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Paul, don't! You've actually made me nervous. I don't want to think about it.
I don't want to put any ideas in any very rich people's heads, but but it could happen, couldn't it? I think think I don't know if there's in the sort of the managerial structure of WordPress.org, the open source project, if there's a clause about what happens if Automatic were to get acquired. Does it get released, or would it finally trigger the big fork? I don't know, but we'll see. In a couple of years' time, if all these acquisitions happen, maybe that could happen. I don't know.
The structure legally is interesting, right? Because there's Automatic, which is a privately held company of which Matt Mullenweg is the CEO, I think, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then there's the WordPress Foundation, which is technically the nonprofit that's also the copyright holder of WordPress. Is that correct? I think that's right.
I believe that's true. Yeah.
But so if Automatic were acquired, I know like all of Automatic's assets, including like Jetpack or whatever, would get acquired. But yeah, it would be really interesting to see, because I mean, let's be honest, Automatic powers a lot of the open source contributions here.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time. I joke that Google would do it. But I have a hard time seeing Matt wanting to cede that amount of control, which for his company, right? And I that's not like a knock on him. That's somebody wanted to buy a Facebook app I wrote like 15 years ago, and I couldn't do it because I'm like, what if they change it? But it was like a quotes app. It was so dumb. So so I'd have a hard time seeing Matt wanting to do that. But I think Automatic would go public sooner than get acquired.
Yeah, I think so, and then get acquired.
Paul, you've terrified me. I don't know.
Yeah, well, the thing is, Matt is a mere mortal like us, so something could happen to Matt, and then I don't want to say that's going to happen at all. We don't want that to happen. But
he benevolent dictator thing.
Yeah. So what happens then? I don't know. But it's just with all this acquisition, this kind of platform building, we don't want to get to a point where we kind of have to make choices about hosting companies based on the solution that we want, because there's lock-in. And I know that is one of the things that that I know Matt Mullenweg is, at least he says he's doing, which is to try and maintain that always being an open source alternative. Doesn't matter what hosting company, what platform, what country, wherever you are, that there is always, as long as you can get yourself a server set up somehow, you can publish information, whether you're in a kind of democracy or the opposite of a democracy sort of thing. But just a quick one, because we won't cover this one fully. There is a really interesting interview that I think came out last week on WP Café, which is a UK, it's a podcast with a YouTube channel as well. And so if you search for WP Café, Matt Mullenweg or something on YouTube, you'll find that particular interview. And it's not just Matt Mullenweg, it's also Josepha, Haden, Chomposy in one interview entitled The Future of WordPress. And it's a really good interview, and definitely worth going to check that one out.
Or just go to that handy to remember URL.
Yep,
which is
easy.
currently on the screen.
Uppercase Z, uppercase what?
No.
Write in a notepad. It's going to go out.
But yeah, still on Ronald. Just before we move to the next one, Ronald, you work for Yith Themes, and Yith is like a marketplace. It's not really a marketplace, but it's got tons of WooCommerce plugins. So it is like a solution. You can buy the membership from Yith, and if you do, you get all the plugins for 30 sites.
No, you can't.
Or something like
you
that.
Don't do that anymore.
Can't do that anymore.
No. It's just individual plugins, and each have their own value and solution and feature. But yeah, no, it's I think we're on the hit list of a few, but
I can imagine you are. That's
totally
what I was going to ask. I know you can't say obviously anything, but I just wondered, is Yith already partnered officially with any of the hosting companies? Just completely.
Partnered.
Yeah.
It would be interesting, because I think the solutions we have could really boost anybody's e-commerce offering with creating all sorts of different types of solutions. So it would be a great sort of, in an ideal world, have it all working, because the way we've coded it, we've done it on a single framework. It would be a one-stop shop to pretty much achieve 70, 80, 90% of the e-commerce shops. I'm not trying to advertise here at all.
No,
but I think the
but
strength for
60
us,
million, yeah, something like that.
the strength for the company is to remain independent, because there are a lot of advantages of, but it is becoming more and more difficult, I think, in the WordPress space. I think Joe mentioned earlier about how it's evolving, and it's becoming a billions and billions of whatever dollar-pound industry, and for everybody it's growing. And I think also earlier what you said about Automatic, I think WooCommerce is probably one of the most valuable assets to Automatic. So what could happen with WooCommerce on its own, whether being acquired? How about BigCommerce? Maybe they've got a lot of money to take it over. But yeah, for sure, it's a big. Do you still work for them, Topher? Is that
no?
Okay, sorry.
October.
I thought it was in the intro, so I did.
Yeah, that must be out of date.
Well,
oops.
There's a story there.
Oh,
Right.
That's on
Probably not
episode 164 of the.
That's right, yeah. Let me give
you
you another alternative reality. Seeing as Yith to me always feels like the biggest competitor to the Automatic suite of WooCommerce plugins. And anyone who follows the kind of insider news, how about this one? Elementor acquires Yith and then forks WordPress. Ooh, that would be harsh, wouldn't it? Can you imagine that?
Oh, you could have a really good episode where we just decide who should buy who. That'd be great.
Rearrange
like a card game.
Power structure.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be like Risk.
Paul, I think you're treading on some very sensitive ground on a couple of things you've said in the last 15 minutes. So you might want to move on very quickly.
I've got no skin in the game. That's the good thing about this. I can say what I want and just throw it out there. Just throw it out there.
Yeah. I'm not seeing any comments coming in, so
there's a few
only
ones
Lee
from...
Jackson talking about everybody's hair.
No, my favorite comment today is this one from Sefanboy083. Want to become famous? Buy followers and viewers on. Well, thank you for that. That was very relevant.
This is Twitch. If you put anything out on Twitch, you are more or less guaranteed to get almost bots, instantaneous. There must be a bot which just recognizes that something's gone live and just posts that garbage. But there we go. Sorry, that's my rant. So we talk about Robert Jacobi.
I think we should, because we're still on acquisitions in a way. And I think what we've first of all seen is like acquisitions of companies and products, but it's not just that. And Topher knows this because, you've acquired a podcast, for instance, the Hallway Chats podcast. And I know that's not like the same kind of commercial deal sort of thing that's going on here. That's for a completely different reason. But we spread now from products being acquired to people being acquired. Because these big companies, they don't just need products, they need people, and that's why they're buying companies like Give, and they're buying all that marketing power of Give at the same time as the product itself. And so, first of all, I just want to congratulate Robert Jacobi, who has joined Cloudways as the director of WordPress, and that's the next item that we're going to talk about. So Robert's been on this show before, and anyone who is in the WordPress space and actively taking notice of who's saying things and who's a voice in WordPress would probably either know directly Robert or know of him. So this is pretty exciting news. And I'm going to chuck this one over to Ronald, because you actually, in the same way Joe broke the news about Give, Ronald, you had the honor of being the first to break the news about Robert.
Well, only to you, not to a wide audience, but so my it's quite limited. But he did tell me a day or so before this was announced, which I was quite flattered about. But he's also the co-panelist on the WooCommerce Roundtable session with Bob WP. But Robert is he's really interesting because he knows a lot. He's got so much experience, and he often joins quietly. But when he speaks, you can sense there's a wealth of knowledge that sits within. And the few times I've spoken as part of a meetup or sort of privately, sometimes you get these little hints, and he's got pockets of knowledge about pretty much everything that's sort of relevant for a company like Cloudways. So I think they're going to gain so much from his experience and knowledge, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of that.
He was the president of Joomla, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes, he was.
I don't quite know what that role involves, but I guess that's the equivalent of Matt over on the Joomla side.
Yeah.
But he's
One
I
of
don't
the
know.
things,
Yeah.
One of the things I have valued about Robert over the years is that he has been deeply a part of two major worldwide CMS communities. He's been a part of the Joomla community. He knows those people, and they have their camps like ours, and he knows what those are like, and he knows what it's like to lead a major project. And now he's in this community, and so he has that viewpoint of the both of them, and that's really interesting. Not too many people have that.
Could I just ask, did Cloudways, I mean, I'm sure we've all heard of Cloudways. Did Cloudways have this role before, or has it been uniquely created so that he can fill it?
That's been uniquely created for Robert. Yeah. So Robert reached out to me last week, and I interviewed him for an upcoming episode of my WP Review podcast on Thursday. So I got a little bit of the skinny there, but yeah, they have similar roles in other areas that they are of which they're involved, and I'm totally blanking on. I think PHP Laravel is one, and then I don't think it's Drupal, but there's another kind of another community advocate role.
Magento maybe, or something
Magento.
like that
Is exactly right. Yes, but director of WordPress is Robert is the first one they created this role for him. And then they're reorging a little bit, and I suspect they'll also have a director of Magento and a director of Lee just mentioned it in the chat too. So multiple confirmations here. So I suspect they'll create directors for those roles as well.
I'm trying to find the bit in the text where it explains, because I did read it somewhere. It was like 3 or 4 lines saying what the job involved, but the bit which stuck with me was the sort of outreach to sort of found community events, and not found, but bolster community events and reach out to people in the WordPress space. And so that's fascinating. I'm just so pleased, and I've just got to put him back on the screen because what a moustache. It's so sublimely cool. I love it.
Yeah.
But this
Can I
is
just
great.
give a plug for him as well, because the Jacobi.com, he's often quick on breaking news and insights and extra explanations, also around acquisitions, and he sends out daily emails, which is so easy to read, but it gives you good insight on sort of top level what's happening in and around the industry. So
yeah, he really knows what's going on. I mean,
Yeah.
not just in WordPress, like you said, like the surrounding things, the PHP world and that kind of thing. And so Cloudways have really got themselves a very knowledgeable person in Robert. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he's doing. But it makes me wonder now, I wonder if Cloudways now with him there will have some, it will be, I don't know if this is a thing that they'd be interested in. Like, I wonder if Cloudways will start buying up WordPress products in the same way some of the other hosts are, because Cloudways is a different concept of hosting solution than say Liquid Web or Adobe Engine, or they've all kind of got their unique angle on how they all work. But I think in one of the posts, Cloudways said something like at least 75% of their customers are WordPress users and are coming from that angle. So I guess they figured that out. And in terms of, if these companies are growing, and and then you look at who the voices are in WordPress or the products, there's only so many. The community is only so large. So at some point, everything might be acquired, actually. And then it makes me wonder, you've got companies now acquiring teams for the team, not necessarily, they might not even want the product sometimes, they just want the team. And then, I know Robert hasn't been acquired as such, but to me, it feels like a merge of Robert and Cloudways versus like him just getting a job and applying and figuring out how much he gets paid and all that sort of stuff. So I wonder how far it goes, because Joe, you mentioned on your podcast about Give that Liquid Web and Restrict Content Pro are sponsors of your podcast. I don't know which podcast you were talking about, but you mentioned that they were, and you wonder how long it is until, and I'm hopeful for this, that some of these brands realize that there's products and there's people and there's also voices and narratives that they want to control. So, how long is it till podcasts start getting bought out? How much do you think, Nathan? How much?
I would say 80 or 90 pence I'd sell for.
Can I have some of that money
Yeah.
for putting the idea into some
Okay,
people's-
70 is fine.
Yeah.
60, okay.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because I've just gone and read through Robert's, it's not a job description, it's just the first paragraph of text. And it says, Robert will be leading, I quote, Robert will be leading the WordPress business unit with their strategic partnerships, building community engagement and helping establish new channels of outreach and building brand equity. So that it really feels like that is in his wheelhouse, to reach out to people doing podcasts and blogs and whatever it might be, YouTube channels or something like that. So that's amazing. And Cloudways, they've been a really big name in the WordPress space for a long time. You kind of feel this is such a clever hire for them as well, because they get double duty from him. They get total mainline into the WordPress community, but they also get a really nice backdoor into the Joomla community if there's any if there's any of that stuff going on, because presumably he knows all the people. But watch out. You watch out. I suspect.
Well, I mean,
I'm surprised you didn't get acquired by Kinsta in that case, Nathan, because there was a period where you and Kinsta had a bit of a love affair.
They were so good.
Sorry, did I drop the word again?
No, not at all. These things just go in cycles, don't they? They sponsor you for a while and then something else happens. But let's all just hang up the call now and all of us simultaneously go and phone Robert Jacobi and try and get him to sponsor.
You can buy us. You can buy us.
It's just me. Yeah, adopt me.
It's interesting because he did mention that specifically. I did a little bit of work with Cloudways. They wanted some videos and they sponsored my podcast for a time, I think a couple of years ago, but I think that Robert's job is a lot more dedicated to that, which is good. I mentioned in our interview that the face of their WordPress team is a little bit disjointed. I talked to multiple people and I was never sure who like the owner was, right? Like the owner of my project, I mean. Or the project that we were doing together. So I think it'll be really good in that aspect. And Ron, to your point about podcasts getting acquired, I mean, we're seeing like Spotify do that. Obviously, we're seeing like Amazon do that. But Castos just made an acquisition of 3 clips.
It's true.
And so it's really interesting. I think that the podcast industry is still very, is still in its infancy, really. I think it's Spotify's trying to accelerate that. And obviously everybody else is jumping on the bandwagon. I don't think that podcasting was in Amazon's wheelhouse 4 years ago, or on their radar 4 years ago. And Apple has obviously decided to rededicate efforts to it. And so it'll be interesting. I think that probably in a couple years we'll see more of a trickle down effect. I think companies will probably try to do their own first. Full disclosure, I have a client in the podcast space or in the WordPress space who I produce their podcast for. But I think they'll try to do it and then they'll realize maybe that an acquisition of a long-standing podcast in the space might better suit them because of the relationship or the personal connection that the host has with their audience.
Hello, Robert. Robert. Yeah, I'll talk to you later,
dude.
Robert. Yeah.
And Joe, you need to get your account sorted in readiness for that. You need to get those things
I'm
sorted
actually
out.
texting my accountant right now. I'm like, can you fix my books?
Stuff's happening.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's
I
good.
think I have seen some of the WordPress brands and hosting brands try to do their own channels. I think GoDaddy has done it on and off. GoDaddy has sometimes had like an active YouTube channel for a while, then kind of stopped doing it for a while and everything. And I think it is difficult because they do bring in really good presenters, but they're sort of like professionals who are new. I'm not saying that that's not a good thing. It's just it doesn't seem to stick to the audience, and the audience that I know that these companies want to speak to is the audience of people who are the voices who are then creating the kind of the messages that the wider community who's not really as reachable listens to and stuff. So yeah, that would be interesting to see.
Topher, can I just ask you?
Yeah.
According to the rundown, you're the only one on here who doesn't have a podcast that you're involved with. Is that?
Yeah,
I do now.
You do. So check it out. All 5 of us. So I'm sort of generic WordPress. Paul is, we're doing this together. You're WooCommerce. What's your Joe, your podcast's about podcasts, right? Is that the
very meta?
Yeah, I have like too many now, but how I built it is basically actionable tech tips for small business owners, kind of broadening the WordPress umbrella. I have WP Review, which is specifically WordPress news, and I might be launching another one.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe.
That's also in episode 164. And Topher, what is yours related to what? Forgive me, I don't know.
HeroPress recently took over hallway chats.
I did.
I think we should say the word acquired. I mean, it seems to be the theme of the show today.
Yeah, I've struggled with that because acquired always sounds to me like we bought it or we took it over or something like that, and it was really a handoff.
It's like you adopted it. It's almost like you adopted the show, and it seemed
a community
like when
asset.
you buy a puppy or something, and you realize this happened to me, and you realize, there's a home over there where this puppy would be better suited, and we've realized we need to do some other things in our household, and that's the impression I got when you and Kate took over hallway chats, and
we'd been thinking about having a podcast for HeroPress for a while, and I just happened to mention that to Liam.
Yep.
And they had just happened to be thinking about ending hallway chats altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Hey, we should talk."
Nice bit of synchronicity.
Yeah.
I would expect, Joe, you probably pontificate on this more than any of the rest of us. But do you feel like so in line with Robert Jacobi and obviously the outreach program that he's going to have to embark upon building, do you feel that podcasts and these WordPress sponsors, are they a good fit? Do you see there's like a strong future for specifically WordPress podcasts and things like that, and selling this as an ongoing thing to clients, whatever industry they're in?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, so much that I've kind of bet my business on it, right? Because I've been making WordPress websites for a long time, and I recently decided to pivot into helping people launch their own podcasts and launching my own. And I think the important thing, so first of all, WordPress, more than any other thing I'm really involved in, I think, is very, very community focused, right? I feel like you have an instant bond with people in the WordPress space, and we do a lot more things out in the open than a lot of people. I always say, like, you see competitors like exchanging notes in the WordPress space, and you don't see like Apple and Microsoft exchanging notes. And so I think that's a tentpole of podcasting too, right? Is that podcasting is, I say intimate, meaning, right? Intimate is really not the right word, but it's very personal. You're inviting the host into your headphones and you're listening to them, and you feel like the podcast host, especially I talk about my personal life on my podcast a lot. And so you have this strong bond, like the listeners and the host. And for anybody who's trying to build community, and for anybody who's trying to form that strong bond, a personal recommendation from a podcast host can go a long way. I mean, I've had sponsors on my podcast for years continually renewing because they see that return on their investment. And so moving forward, I think, especially if you're a product trying to build a community or reach a new audience or form a stronger bond with that new audience, supporting podcasts or starting your own podcast is going to be an extremely good avenue, especially as listeners tick up, right? The latest Edison research shows that more than 50% of American adults listen to at least one podcast a week.
It's almost like intravenous community, isn't it? You get right to the heart of it straight away. So, yeah, like I say, we'll all be phoning Robert Jacobi. Yeah. Should we push it on, Paul?
Yeah, Nathan. So I got on my list to ask you actually about the Page Builder Summit you ran last week. And first of all, how did it go? I know it went really well for starters, but for you, and how did you perceive it went, because you've done it before?
Yeah, I think it went all right.
What I'm also interested in as well is that you obviously probably watched all of the presentations and you edited them and everything, and you engaged with the audience in the Facebook group and on the social media.
Sorry, breaking news. Yep. Breaking news.
Go on then.
Sorry, for those of you that are listening, Robert Jacobi just dropped in and said, "Why is his phone ringing off?" Oh, that's priceless.
He's everywhere. Yeah. Thanks.
It is a bit of a race. Who is going to get in first, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unless we all already have signed up.
Sorry, Paul. Carry on.
I'll have a poker.
No, I just wondered what you felt the feeling in the community was about page builders and how things had changed maybe from the last time you did the summit as well. Like what's the product people are talking about? Is the block editor going to destroy page builders? Do we need to get scared about that yet? Or what's going on?
That's an easy one for me to answer, because the shift towards Gutenberg is palpable. But also, I used the phrase a couple of times because we had a social and we were talking about this, and I used the phrase, a rising tide carries all boats. And I feel that there is just so much space in WordPress for alternatives to Gutenberg. And it kind of feels to me like a lot of people are really curious about it. It feels virtually nobody is building their business on Gutenberg yet, but they're all curious and they're all trying out different solutions. And it feels like we might have reached an inflection point where some people are, because there were a few presentations in there. You'll probably know the ones I mean, Paul, where people were fleshing out fully beautiful websites just out of blocks. And that's only been recently possible. But it also, there was zero talk about, well, I'm going to leave Elementor now and I'm going to leave Beaver Builder. In fact, quite the opposite. It feels that those communities are getting stronger and stronger by the week. And as we tick through 40, 45, maybe even getting up to 50 in the next couple of years %, you imagine what each percentage point adds to the number of people using these tools. I mean, it must be a jaw-droppingly large amount. So my feeling is that whole industry is safe, and even new players like Bricks, which has sort of come along, seem to be forging a community and being profitable doing it. So I don't have any fear for the people.
Yeah, there's always going to be new products, new page builders that come out, and some of them will have a good business plan and some of them won't. And the ones that have got a good business plan knew the environment they were getting to and were able to make steady growth. And think about the future, will probably be absolutely fine. It's like you said, every time I hear the percentage about WordPress, it's always gone up 1%, which must mean billions of websites probably.
Yeah. Do we know how many WordPress sites? Did I read somewhere 70 million? That 40.
I'm going to guess it's double that. Because
per 1%.
Well, Elementor made the claim that they had 4.5% of the internet. This magic number. Where does that? Yeah. What is the internet? But whatever it may be, they claim to have 4.5% of that, and they claimed that was 7 million. So just let's call it 5%. And let's go for 140 million. But that's.
I think they got their maths wrong there on that. I think we need to check.
Well, you have staging and live and
maybe don't know.
But still, anyway, it doesn't matter. It's still a hell of a lot of websites.
A lot. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah. Anyway, so there we go. We won't dwell on that. But if you did want to check it out, there's still, you can't really watch the talks anymore, but there is the Power Pack thing available.
You can still buy the Power Pack, yeah?
Yeah, till Wednesday. So
you can buy it till Wednesday. So pagebuildersummit.com and going. How much is the power pack now?
$7 billion.
I don't mean for Robert Jacobi to buy.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
how much
I
does a
think it's
regular customer have to
147.
pay?
I think it's 147.
147.
Yeah.
So that's a really good price because you've had some amazing.
Well, actually,
feedback on
Paul,
there,
we're
so,
selling a special
yeah.
bonus edition where we've
Oh, yeah.
removed your talk and we're selling it for 200.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Damn.
That was really
You
low.
you realize last week when you weren't here, when Bernard was insubordinate, I turned him off for a moment.
Oh, okay. Right, well, I'll just
Yeah.
meekly.
So
I'll
be careful.
yeah,
I'm
you
logged
carry
in
on.
as you. I can do that.
Oh, you know I'm joking.
Sure,
but
sure.
should we move on to something much more in your wheelhouse?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you know what? I'm sorry.
yeah,
I wanted to throw something in there about page builders and stuff like that.
Please do. Yeah.
The full site editing's been a big thing recently, and just this week, one of the problems I've had with Gutenberg is that you can make wonderful, beautiful pages, but there isn't really a mechanism for managing archive pages. And personally, I do a lot of data engineering in WordPress, and so I do a lot of custom post types, and of course, they all need archive pages, and they all need singles, and Gutenberg just isn't there for that. So I'm kind of excited about full site editing, and this week, Caroline and Neymark released one. It was published on WordPress.org, and Anna Segata said she's going to submit one to .org this week. So I think we're starting to see more of that. And I think once Gutenberg can actually do a whole site, not just pages, it's gonna get a lot bigger, a lot more powerful.
Yeah, you've got to feel that a lot of these developers probably could have implemented their own solution, and we may talk about that in just a minute, but they're kind of holding off. I was talking to the guys from Stackable earlier this week, and they were saying they could have implemented their own full site editing solution, but better just to wait and adopt what everybody else is doing. And we're not. I feel by the end of this year we'll have something fully fleshed out and usable. But for me, one of the curious things out of that summit wasn't blocks to build the normal stuff that we're used to. It was just this curious new wave of blocks doing things which I didn't see. Like, I don't know if any of you have heard of Leslie Sims' newsletter glue plugin. Well, it's a it allows you to create a newsletter just like you would in a SaaS platform like MailChimp or something, but it's a blog post, and then it pushes it upon publication out to your mail sender of choice. Again, it could be MailChimp or something else, but just such a curious and brilliant example of how a block, the content isn't a blog post. It could literally be anything. And I was playing with it over the weekend and having great fun. It's absolutely brilliant. I don't know if you've seen that one, Joe. I think you were nodding just then, but it's
yeah. Can I just shamelessly plug that she's going to be on my live stream on Wednesday, Wednesday 9 a.m. Eastern, and she will be adding newsletter glue to Casabona.org. So you can visit Casabona.live and get a reminder for the live stream. I'm actually setting up the page. It's rude to do it on the stream, but by the end of the stream, like the reminder will be there. But Casabona.live Wednesday at 9 a.m. Leslie will be joining me and walking us through.
It's so good. And but that's just like, I feel the tip of the iceberg, you know, a block to do that thing. Who knows what these ingenious people are going to come up with. So sorry, Paul, that was me harking back to that point about what came up in the summit. That was one of the things, just how curious and different the blocks are going to be, and the fact that the block editor isn't constrained to posts or pages. So yeah, interesting future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Matt Medeiros uses newsletter glue as well. I know he does for the WP Minute. I don't know if he's using it yet for his main podcast, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think the WP Minute has a partner email newsletter that goes out with it, so I think that's probably why he's partnered with that. But yeah, it seems that product is going really well. So, and what it is like a newsletter plugin within WordPress, but it's very, very simple. And I think it uses the Gutenberg, the block editor, to design your newsletters, which is really cool, because you can imagine in the future, you know, people who are making their websites are familiar with the block editor and not having to go over to another third party email system, MailChimp, MailerLite, whatever, and use a different interface. They can duplicate some of their content, pull it straight into a newsletter.
It's very powerful.
Yeah, very powerful.
So now you need to
Very
have
powerful.
two CMS running with your data, and if you want to integrate with coupons or other deals that are sort of part of your plugin. So, I can already see that looping back and forth with other solutions that sort of build on top of that.
Yeah, and
of
it's
course,
nice. It's nice to have
your data.
Sorry, Ronald. Also nice just to have that newsletter on your territory.
Yes.
It's yours. You get the SEO juice from all of that, and it's absolutely wonderful. Just, Joe, would you drop the URL for your thing into the private chat, and I'll pop it on the screen if anybody wants to do that. But sorry, carry on with what you were going to say. Oh, great.
Oh, yeah, and I was just going to say that, and it does integrate right with a bunch of different, like, so if you have MailChimp, for example, you build your newsletter, right? And I'm excited. She told me that she's working on ConvertKit integration, and I send out a members newsletter monthly, and now, like Ron said, I keep calling you Ron. Do you prefer Ron or Ronald?
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, cool. You can integrate kind of this members only stuff, and then it'll be part of my members archive. Right now, I have my VA like copy those newsletters and paste them into the members area, and I'm just excited to kind of cut down on one smaller step, and like the ConvertKit editor is like okay, but it's not as good as the block editor. So
I'm just looking at the back end. You can connect it to how do I do that? Oh, I can't remember, but I know you're right. MailChimp was there. There was all the usual suspects, and quite not a usual suspect, this self-hosted thing called Sendy as well, which is quite a nice PHP script that you can buy for literally $40 or something, which will handle this. It doesn't do all the whiz-bang stuff that ActiveCampaign does, but it's quite cool. So go check out Casabona.live. What day did you say?
This Wednesday, that's at the 19th at 9 a.m. Eastern.
Nice. What a good bit of coincidence that was. Lovely.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks
for
bring that in.
Automatic buying newsletter glue and carrying it on as an open source project and putting it into WordPress.com or Jetpack or something like that. I could see that happening, but it's always speculation. But it's funny, Topher, you were just talking before we move to the next segment about that the block editor isn't doing the single post templates for you. It's not doing the archive posts, and the full site editing project is obviously aiming to give us that for any compatible theme. So there could be 100,000 themes that we can do that with in the near future, and that it seems to be coming on quite nicely. Even though the block editor itself I have my problems with, I can see that they're getting there. And if you listen to some of the people, whether it's Josepha or Anne McCarthy talking about the project that they're doing, you get to understand that they are moving forward and they are listening all the time. But our next item is actually showing how full site editing is possible, albeit if you're using GeneratePress with GeneratePress Premium. So you can't use this tool on a different theme. But if you happen to be a GeneratePress Premium customer, and I'm a massive fan of GeneratePress, I've been using this product for a number of years. Well, they've just released version 2.0 of GeneratePress Premium. GeneratePress Premium is like the plugin that goes with the theme. So the theme is free, and then the GeneratePress Premium is the plugin that you pay a small amount of money for, and you get lots of add-on functionality. And I know they've been working on this version for probably over a year. And essentially what they've done, if you scroll down to the next dark zone.
Will do. Sorry about that. Yep.
Scroll down to the next dark area there. It says here, with 2.0, they've introducing the first ever block-based theme builder. Now, it depends how you define if it is the first ever or not, but it kind of is. Even something like Toolset isn't giving you the whole package. But what you can do with GeneratePress Premium now is you can design your archive views in the block editor, assign it to different post types, different taxonomies. You can create all the different. Oh yeah, is that the YouTube video there, Nathan?
Yeah.
I
Fantastic.
was
Yeah.
really excited about this because you
This
shared
is-
this with me
yeah.
earlier, Paul, and I
Yep.
got so excited I shared it with my wife, which is the first time I shared a YouTube video WordPress related. It's like,
Yeah.
check this out. You need to look into this. And by the way, Paul, you introduced me to GeneratePress, which
Long time ago.
no
Yeah.
regret. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're able to, for instance, design what the item looks like in the list of archives. You can design all the small parts, like what you can see in the video at the moment is the meta that appears below the post title, for instance. You can design your 404 pages. You can design your archive pages, your single post pages for any of the different custom post types or taxonomies that you've got. You can already, with this, build a full working site. It all works with WooCommerce and all that kind of thing. And this is just version 2.0. So I know that like from here, they will be able to iterate really, really quickly to listen to that community. GeneratePress listens to its community, or it does all of the time. And the things that people want to be able to build the sites that they need, those things, so long as they go along with the GeneratePress ethos, will get done. And so this is a great example of what actually is possible with the block editor. But obviously you've got to use GeneratePress Premium here. So when I first saw this, I was like, why are they bothering with the full site editing product? It's done. But actually it's not. This is for GeneratePress. This is and it'll be interesting to see. I think when full site editing is matured, I think that GeneratePress will carry on doing it its own way, and that some other themes will copy GeneratePress, and then some other themes will go down the more vanilla route of using the official full site editing facilities. But you can see the developers who are pushing ahead now, innovating and creating these solutions that people need. So it's going to be an interest in the next 12 months.
Yeah, even if it just sort of bridges the gap between full site editing in core, but it'll also give the likes of Anne McCarthy something to look at and say,
exactly.
we could do it this way because this seems to work rather well. I haven't played with it, so I don't know, but Topher, that might be worth a look.
The thing to do is to go to the GeneratePress.com website, go to the premium section and watch the video, because there isn't a ton of information about this out yet. But if you watch the video and you're familiar with the block editor, in 2 minutes you'll get how this thing works. And like Ronald said, he was so excited that he told his wife about it. We should kind of frame that in that Ronald's wife does work in WordPress and does work in building websites, so it's not quite as extreme,
right?
But so I imagine she was probably pretty pleased about this because it does open lots of opportunities as well.
Not yet.
So
I can't tell you what she replied, but not quite as excited as I was. But
next time I'm excited about something in WordPress, I'm going to tell your wife as well.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah.
She's going to be delighted. Are we on to the last one, the gravity forms? We've got time, haven't we? We've got enough time. You all okay for another 5 minutes?
I think so.
Sorry, in the meantime, I've been arranging. My eldest son is picking up my youngest son, and now sitting in the car, so I'm all good.
That's good. I always said that. Ronald, if you do need to run off, then
don't
just wave and say bye, and go. The final one we've got today, unless anyone else has got anything to add about the GeneratePress product at all, or we're okay to move on. Nope,
I'm good.
All right, so this is a post from Gravity Forms, and it's introducing the new 2.5 features on accessibility. So this is interesting, not just if you're into accessibility and that kind of thing, but basically that they've not only released version 2.5, which most people were looking at as a kind of user interface update, but they're quickly rolling out or focusing on important long-term features that people need for their solutions. So, but aside from the accessibility, I actually tried out the new version for the first time a couple of days ago, because I've looked at what they're doing, and whenever I see the Gravity Forms 2.5, it looks like they've kind of copied the block editor so that it fits nicely with the interface that we're all used to doing, which makes sense. It totally makes sense that you would do that. Now, if you go to the Gravity Forms website, somewhere on there is a button you can click and you can just play with a demo of Gravity Forms 2.5 without having to buy it. You can play with it and see how it feels. And this is just to put it out there that I felt for a long time that the big problem with the user interface for the block editor in Gutenberg was that it's just too much. Everything was white. It was just everything's white. There was no contrast or anything like that, and I couldn't get my head around it. Now, the Gravity Forms UI looks like the block editor, but it's not. It's different. It behaves beautifully, and it shows. So if anyone, in the core team happens to be watching this at the moment or listening, go check out the demo of Gravity Forms. And I don't know what they've done, but it looks the same, but it feels a million times smoother to use. So, but I didn't really take much notice of the accessibility thing. I put it in there mainly because I wanted to raise that point. But if anyone wants to, if anyone else has tried the new Gravity Forms or has migrated from the old one to the new one, I'd be interested to hear how you've been getting on as well. But interface I found wonderful.
You kind of feel that they were a little bit behind with all of that. I feel like their rivals had sort of stolen the march on them a little bit. So it's really, really nice, just from the point of view of the way it looks. Nice to see them catching up.
They've leaped. They've done a giant leap here. I don't know if it's put them ahead, but it's put them. Let's say how Cloudways is kind of different to a lot of the other hosts in its concept. It feels that Gravity Forms has done something that makes it feel different than the rest of the competition, or it feels like it's built a new foundation for itself to move forward now. So I don't know where that's going. But as a long-term Gravity Forms user, I'm pleased to see that. I know, Ronald, you use Formidable. Are you still a Formidable person? Yeah.
I really like them as well.
Yeah. So that's all I had to say about that. But the accessibility thing they're talking about there is showing you some of the fine grain control you can have over that. And it's good because it shows they have a very clear understanding of that accessibility.
Yeah, we never really did focus on the main point of the article, which was that, wasn't it? That they've made a real effort to... They make the point in the article that it in order for it to be accessible, you've still got to do the grunt work. You have to go and fill out all of the areas where the accessibility form fields are required, but they are there for you to make use of. Whereas perhaps in other solutions, they simply don't exist. And so, that's a really nice badge for them to be able to wear. Great.
Speaking of accessibility, there was an item that we removed actually this week because we weren't sure we had enough time, but I know that there is an open letter by various accessibility people who have a lot of knowledge about WordPress and accessibility to I don't know who the letter is to. There's an open letter. Is it to anyone? Is that what an open letter is?
AccessiBe?
I think it's the AccessiBe story, right?
Yeah. It's kind of linked to that. It's linked to that to kind of say we need to stop using tools that sit on top of a website that try and clean up a mess of something that wasn't accessible and then kind of reverse engineer some kind of pseudo accessibility into a website. So I think this idea of we've got to get serious about this now. The accessibility starts at the foundation. Same with performance. I did a talk at Nathan's Page Builder Summit, which obviously you can get more expensive version if you have my talk removed. But my talk was focusing on performance, and again, it was like you need to sort out the things at the foundation and not just throw a caching plugin at it. Core Web Vitals makes us realize that, and I think accessibility be getting the attention that it deserves more and more now. Some of these companies are kind of doing the right thing and putting that accessibility into the core and not just saying, if you were an expert, you can do this. They're helping us to be educated about it. But this is the article that we previously had removed to say, let's not have these overlay products, they call them. So if you do work for clients and they're like, can we use this product? You've got something to refer to now as to why maybe that isn't such a good idea, even if the marketing seems to suggest that it is.
I just want to jump in here and say, first of all, I feel like your whole agenda is based on content I've created or am creating. But my interview with Beth Hannon is out this week on my podcast, and she talks about this. Her and Amber Hines in a previous episode talk about these overlay plugins and how they don't solve a problem. And one of them made the point that this kind of makes you a target for accessibility lawsuits because they look at people who are just using this plugin and then they know that their site's not accessible. Yeah, crazy, right? Which is like, it's like, I don't want to say it's like bottom feedery, but it's something to look out for, right? If it kind of puts a target on your back if you're just trying to put a band-aid on what's a real issue and something that needs to be continually looked after, right? You can't just enable JavaScript to fix a problem like accessibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like it says that you were aware of it. And this was your idea.
It's like it's like those people who put up content on YouTube that is they don't own the copyright for, and then they say no copyright infringement intended. It's like you're still doing it, and now you're acknowledging that you're doing it, right? People who like republish music videos or whatever, right? And they're like no copyright infringement intended.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are infringing on the copyright.
Yeah.
We get copyright takedown notices about once every couple of months for this. It's
really?
Just like, yeah, it's just nuts. There's just no music at all.
Playing like Led Zeppelin in the background.
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah, they're after millions. No,
I mean something earlier, Nathan. I was
there's like two.
Sorry.
Go on.
No, unless it's from Joe Casabona because we recycle all of his content.
That is true. My lawyers.
It's just an automated script, and Google immediately say if this feels bogus, just ignore it because we probably will. I can't remember what the exact wording is, but the first time I got one, I was a bit I'm in trouble, and then realized that really it's just automated.
YouTube's infringement algorithm is very clever. I used music in my live stream when I was on Twitch, and it was like Twitch had partnered with a company to let you use it in their live streams. And then I moved it over to YouTube, but they don't have the same deal with YouTube. So YouTube basically said, hey, you're using copyright music. We're not going to take your video down, but all of the stats and the monetization will be attributed to the copyright holder.
That's how they do it.
Wow.
The last time I mentioned AppSumo on this show was probably about 2 years ago because I've really kicked the habit. But I did find don't know if this will interest you, Joe. There's a tool called Filmstro on AppSumo at the moment, and it allows you to create. They've got a library of let's say about 150 copyright-free songs, but they've divided each song up into 4 component parts, and it's power, momentum, depth, and something else. And all you do is you download your video into the app, and then you just when you want the pressure to increase, you just slide the power, and it's absolutely great. Anyway, there you go.
That's super cool. I'm gonna check that out. I found a good playlist from Alberto Gonzalez on Twitter. He mentioned it, but it's like on Spotify, just lo-fi stream beats. So I just play that.
Do that.
I got to figure out because like I have the Rodecaster Pro and I turn on mix minus usually so that everybody's voice isn't in my recording, but I need to turn off mix minus to get the audio. So
synced.
Yeah. That'll be my next project on a future live stream.
I just had this vision, Nathan, of you adding this music while doing this live.
When Paul
is talking, is sort of build up the momentum and the power.
Yeah.
I have this lovely Mac app called Loopback.
I was thinking the same, Ronald. I've been daydreaming for that whole time when they were talking. Then
there's another one for you, Joe. I'm sure you've got it.
And explosion.
You got Loopback. I just love you.
Yeah, is that from Rogue Amoeba? Is that those fellas? Yeah.
Yes.
They're
great. Allows you to hijack audio from any input and stick it anywhere else. So we could take something out of the Chrome browser and push it into here. And they've got another app called Farrago, which is just a bank of sound effects. So you just click the button.
Oh, nice.
Like the buttons you've got on your Rodecaster,
Yeah. I use SoundSource. Because with the Rodecaster Pro and with other interfaces like that, you can't control the volume from your volume buttons on the Mac. SoundSource lets you do that.
Got it.
I'm like, that is worth the $30 that I paid for this app, just so I can press the volume up button on my keyboard and not have to like reach over to the knob.
That's great. I'm gonna...
Topher,
That's how lazy I am.
Topher, you'll be having to get all these gadgets soon as well.
That's right.
With your new
Oh, yeah.
podcast.
You can't podcast without extra.
I have a fair amount of equipment here because I've been making training videos for years.
Cool.
So
You're sorted then.
I've got a DBX 286S here. I've got this giant microphone and all that kind of stuff. But related to our RV thing, I'm gonna have to have a conversation with Joe about this.
Yeah, you need a micro setup, don't you? Really, you need
and so
setup.
I want a compressor and all that kind of stuff in the smallest possible form factor.
Yeah.
I was looking today at the little Zoom P4, the little handheld one. I quite like the look of that. I don't know whether it's got the compression in, but it's got all the mix minus and everything. So it might. Anyway, we've totally strayed. No longer.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments I just wanted to highlight.
Yes, please.
Because there's been lots of nice comments today as well. Cameron Jones wants to know, Nathan, if you've kicked the habit of buying stuff on AppSumo. Cameron, Nathan can probably speak for himself, but I'm just going to say how awful AppSumo's quality of products are these days compared to the good old days when we used to waste our money there. Nathan, have you kicked the habit, or is it just the quality just isn't really there anymore?
The only reason I bought that app is because I really wanted it. It wasn't a case of I'll explore this. I actually took and I really went deep and looked at their promo stuff and their website, and even wrote them a letter, an email, and they replied, and it was all good. And I checked it out. So I'm still in that refund period, but no, I don't. I no longer. I don't even follow what they do anymore at all. So you're right.
No, I don't. I used to check the website every day, multiple times, and that definitely showed there was a problem there because it was an addictive website to get involved in, really. But just the marketing was so strong to the right mindset. Which, but another comment way further back up. We've had 3 people today who are in some way connected with Cloudways. We've got Robert Jacobi in there. Lee Matthew Jackson is one of the Mavericks, and he's been commenting. Thanks for that, Lee. And Peach Neri was also in the comments way back at the beginning.
I missed that one.
Yeah, she's a friend of the show. She's been on a number of times, and she's got a conference coming up in and around design called Design for Conversions, and you can find out about that at designforconversions.com. And it starts on the 17th today. It starts today. And it's apparently you can get free live access. And you can find out the full schedule there. And it's a 4-day conference full of information in and around design. I know Peach has been quite active on podcasts recently, giving a lot of value. So go and check that out and see if it's something that you can learn something from if you are starting a new web design project at the moment.
Is there any other comments? I think Topher in particular might have to have a hard stop in a couple of minutes, so we'll.
I wanted to say one more thing before I go.
Sure, please do.
Quick story about my job. I left BigCommerce in October and immediately went to Camber Creative, a web development company. We do WordPress, Drupal, React, mobile, all that kind of stuff. But I am still the BigCommerce community representative for WordPress. So I still have a tie there. I still talk to them all the time. I'm in their Slack all the time. But now I'm outside building websites and stuff. So that's where I am.
That's where
enjoying that again. Getting back into that. Yeah.
Yep.
Are you doing more stuff for OS training?
Yeah. Yep. I recently did a series on formidable forms.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. It's,
and you do all know that Topher was the one who actually taught me WordPress all those years ago.
Nice.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is nice. Yeah.
It all comes around. And Paul has been a massive influence to where I am now. And I just
Sorry about that.
You and Nathan. So,
yep.
To loop you into that story. So it's a good reunion for me. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely. Are we done, Paul? I'm conscious.
I think we are. Yeah. Unless anyone wants to quickly promote something that they're doing next week, go ahead. I think we've already promoted everything, haven't we?
I was just gonna say, I feel like I've promoted plenty on this.
You know what?
There you go. Casabona.live.
Yeah, we'll promote it even if you won't go.
Yeah, everything is on there.
Casabona.com for Casabona.live on Wednesday for the chat with Leslie about newsletter glue. Topher, was there anything, or should we knock it on the head?
Recently, as a hobby project, I built a site called Topher.how, and I've been making content all over the web for a long, long time, and it's really just scattered everywhere, and it's hard for me to keep track of where everything is. And I realized almost all of it's on WordPress sites or other sites with RSS. And so I built a site that just pulls it all into this one place, Topher.how. And it's blog posts and videos and like I pulled in WordPress.tv stuff and YouTube stuff and OS training stuff, stuff from GoDaddy Garage, my own blog, all over the place. And it's all in one place. It's not really organized by topic, but it is organized by source.
There's a lot there. There's a pagination of 11 pages worth of content. So there's plenty going on. Yeah, thank you.
There's going to be a lot more soon. OS Training is moving their site from a Joomla site to WordPress. And then all of my posts, I think they have like 50 posts there over the last 10 years. So those are all going to be available. And I'm going to pull them over here.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Lastly, Ronald, your gig with Robert, Jacobi, and Bob WP, is that do you find that on meetup.com? Is that where we find that one?
It's Meetup, yeah. We did a episode last Thursday with Clara Lee from Head of Marketing from WooCommerce. So it'll be another 4 weeks after for the next one. So it's a monthly thing. Plus every Wednesday, 1:00 UK time for WooCommerce London.
What do we type into meetups to find you on there?
WooCommerce London.
WooCommerce London.
And for Do-Do-Woo, for the roundtable stuff.
Great.
And guess what? We have somebody from Cloudways this Wednesday.
Damn it, he's beaten us to it. Damn. We haven't even got off the call and he's already...
Nathan, make a counter offer.
Yeah, quickly. As soon as this is finished. Honestly, I've got Robert Jacobi on speed dial right here.
Already done.
Well, I would just like to say thank you to, obviously, Paul. He's here every single week, despite my mocking of him. I apologize, Paul. I shan't do it ever again. I like it. Ever. I promise, ever. Until next week. And Ronald, thank you for joining us. And Joe and Topher, thank you all so much. Greatly appreciate it. We'd love to have you all back. And now we've got to do the awkward wave. So wave awkward until it all ends. Bye.